I can't believe these decks today. I can't close my eyes and make them go away. Monday, meta Monday. Monday, meta Monday. All right, that's all. That's all I'm going to subject you to of that. I promise. Maybe we'll have to have someone write a full parody, full parody for me at some point. Anywho, we've got some decks to look at here to start the morning. We had some historic tournaments going on. Let's go ahead and poke at some of the information here. So we didn't have the SCG this past weekend was standard, unfortunately. So we only have a couple of events to pick at information from. So we had both the Hoglandia Open as well as the Insight Esports 5K, which were both historic this weekend over the weekends, and we have this breakdown of the combination and win rates of decks from the two of those. And again, one of the things I think is important to highlight because people often jump to conclusions that they probably shouldn't offhand with information is that while we can make some speculation based on these things, our sample sizes are small. Even on weekends where we have SCG information, the sample sizes are small, I believe. So this data here comes from 418 total matches over the course of those two events. You could say that the events this weekend are going to be impactful on the metagame. The second most played deck by a small margin here was the various pack combo decks, which includes Blue Black, Grixis, Sultai. Not only one of the most played archetypes, but also the highest win rate among the sampling of decks that we have here. One of the things that's kind of interesting from this set of metrics is that Selesnya Company is a deck that I kind of would have expected to do better at a glance against something like Pact Combo, but seeing the metrics here, I would be kind of surprised if that was the case. And I guess if you really think about it, the Green-White Company deck doesn't really have a ton of meaningful tools to interact with the Pact Combo deck, right? Like, your Archons of Emeria technically prevent them from killing you in a single turn. However, they don't prevent the deck from comboing all together, right? So how it works is you can Tainted Pact at the end of the Green-White Company's player's turn, leave one card in your deck, and then untap and win with the Thassa's Oracle that you're casting. So I would kind of expect, upon further investigation, that this probably isn't a very good matchup for this, because the Company deck isn't as consistently aggressive as Gruul, and the disruptive elements that it's leveraging don't line up particularly well into the Pact combo. So this data, for those just joining us, includes the Hoot. So these metrics are combining the Hoglandia Open we had this past weekend along with the Insight Esports 5K tournament, which were the two big historic tournaments for this weekend. Honestly, I'd also wager to guess that the Jeskai control matchup probably isn't amazing for Selesnya Company either. These decks are leaning more, and we saw this a little bit over the weekend where, Narset kind of got into play and really locked out the main avenue that the Company deck has of generating card advantage against control, which is the copies of the Great Henge. Something that we talked about last week is that kind of threshold for a little bit of worry, in my opinion, for is a deck too good, is about that 56% win rate. And we see Jeskai getting close to that and Pact bumping up a little bit top of it. Again, certainty with the sample size is something to consider, but I've talked about this a good bit. I think Pact combo is something that is generally speaking unhealthy for the format in the very same way that even Inverter was unhealthy for Pioneer. It's just incredibly narrow and difficult to interact with. Yes, you can thought seize them, and yes, you can counterspell them, but like the list of what you can do past that basically stops there. There's some really corner case cards like Baleful Mastery and Prismari Command that aren't technically discard or counter spells, but they're still blue and black cards, right? So like the colors that have access to like profitably interacting with pack combo are pretty small overall. Something that is notable and that I think is changing my opinion as we see the data on it come in more as the format matures is that Rogues doesn't really seem like the end all be all scary monster at the top of the format that it was at the first week or 2 weeks that we had after Strixhaven release. Its win rate has mostly normalized, and I think that doesn't ultimately surprise me. I think Rogues is a deck that's feels very bad to play against because they just like constantly answer all of your stuff. And it's a deck where you're from a mental perspective, you're inclined to think the matchup feels worse than it actually is because of the emotions it elicits while you're playing against it. Other things to note here. Overall metagame distribution, of these events was incredibly healthy. So we've got what? This is 23, like 32. We've got what? So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 6 decks that made up the top. Oh, yeah, we can even just, this is 51%, right? So these 6 decks are 49% of the decks registered. So like 6 decks in the top half of the format is just like very, very reasonable and healthy. Especially, if you showed me this for the first week of a format, I'd be like, yeah, it's a new format. People are figuring things out. But we're what, 3-4 weeks post Strixhaven release at this point? When did Strixhaven drop? It was like it was the 15th, so we're 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we're almost a month into this historic format, which is sweet. What's going on? And yeah, thank you for the 2.5 years. I appreciate that. Welcome back. One thing I will comment on here is that as one last piece of bit before we look at some specifics from these is that something that does look a little noteworthy here is that only 3 decks broke that 50% win rate. And like this is close, but like the other metric here is like pretty abysmal, right? Yeah, and these 2 decks almost assuredly, and Grawl 2, like not surprised me. I like these 3 archetypes beating up what the other category is. What's the other winner usually? So traditionally speaking, and we can take a peek back to compare. Usually it's lower, but it's usually not 30% low. So like to give a quick peek into the historic metric from last week, yeah, 40 to 45% is usually where that ends up. And again, like there's a sample size consideration with the fact that we're only at 33% here, but like 33% is like pretty exceptionally low even further. Like just as a rough comparison to look at the standard rate for this week, 46% in the other category for the decks there for the standard matrix this week. So again, small grains of salt because this is a little bit smaller sample size, only 400 matches over 2 events. If you want to look at the specifics of these events, you can find them all up at MTG Melee. I'm going to go ahead and drop the links to those in chat for people that are interested. Remember, if you want to check out the coverage of the Hoaglandia Open, that's fully cut up with all the downtime removed and all of the matches that we covered start to finish up on my YouTube channel with all of them time-stamped in the details there already. So, yeah, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can check in the video description down below for more links to these events as well as this MTG data page here and all that good jazz. So let's go ahead and wrap on this and dive on into some games this morning, huh?